In a single country, Spain condenses the world. From mountains that touch the clouds to deserts that seem from another planet. From humid forests where green never fades to coasts bathed in a light that has inspired entire civilizations. This is a journey through 4 radically different ecosystems, united by the same spirit, a land that breathes history, mystery, and beauty in every corner. Here, there is no rush, only the slow pulse of nature, the whisper of the wind, the murmur of water, and the texture of stone shaped by centuries of time. Prepare to immerse yourself in a visual experience where every image is an invitation to pause, contemplate, and feel eternal Spain, the Spain that still beats far from the noise. In the heart of northern Spain rise the Picos de Europa, one of the oldest and most astonishing mountain formations on the continent. These mountains, born from the collision of tectonic plates millions of years ago, have been slowly sculpted by the action of water. Constant rainfall, underground rivers, and melting snow have carved a karstic landscape full of chasms, sinkholes, and peaks that seem to emerge directly from a sea of mist. Every crack and every white limestone wall is the result of infinite geological patience. Here, where the air smells of wet rock and heather, lives a fauna that has survived since primordial times. On the impossible ridges, the Cantabrian chamois moves with agility, an acrobat of the heights. Lower down, among beech forests and streams, the brown bear finds refuge, a living symbol of the wild nature that still persists in Western Europe. The Covadonga Lakes, formed by the retreat of glaciers, are the purest mirrors of these mountains. Their waters, reflecting the changing sky, silently guard the history of the ice that once covered these valleys. Above all, there is the light. A light that is never the same. It may vanish in seconds under dense fog or suddenly break through, illuminating the peaks with a golden glow. It is a constantly transforming stage where the climate dictates the rhythm and the landscape seems to breathe. In the Picos de Europa, time stretches. Everything invites contemplation. The echo of cowbells in the distance, the flight of a vulture, the murmur of water still carving the stone. A reminder that nature here still holds its original power. The Green Coast stretches like an endless ribbon between mountains and ocean, where the Atlantic meets the land with force. Here, the landscape changes at every turn. Sheer cliffs plunging into the sea, battered relentlessly by waves that seem to want to devour them, and hidden coves opening between the rocks like secrets only the tide knows. The struggle between water and stone is constant, and from that clash emerges a wild, almost primordial beauty. In this humid and fertile setting thrives the Atlantic vegetation, a living tapestry of ferns, oaks, and chestnuts that extends almost to the foam of the sea. Green here is more than a color. It is an atmosphere, a scent, a constant caress. The morning mist covers everything, and when it lifts, it reveals meadows dotted with wildflowers and paths leading to small villages suspended between the fields and the blue horizon. Coastal villages seem to emerge from the landscape itself. Stone houses adapt to the terrain. Facades face the sea as if waiting for returning boats, and fishing ports maintain the slow rhythm of time. In Lastres, Cudillero, and San Vicente de la Barquera, the sea is not just a boundary. It is the reason for existence. The Green Coast is a perfect balance between strength and calm, between the brutality of the ocean and the softness of the surrounding green. Every wave, every mist, every glint of light on the rocks reminds us that this coastline is not meant to be conquered, but contemplated. Here, northern Spain breathes to the rhythm of the sea, eternal and ever-changing, like life itself. In the heart of northern Spain, where the mountains open and the mist pauses to rest, primeval forests stretch as far as the eye can see. Places where time seems to have surrendered and nature preserves its oldest pulse. Here, beech and oak trees form a living canopy that filters the light and fills the air with shades of green. Their interlaced roots support centuries of history. Every fallen leaf, every trunk covered in lichen, is a testament to the balance that has endured long before humans arrived. Moss is the true ruler of these forests. It covers stones, wraps around trunks, and clings to the damp ground with persistent delicacy. An emerald tapestry, it retains water and life, creating a microcosm where fungi, ferns, and tiny, invisible insects thrive. The constant humidity, fed by rain and mist, makes the forest breathe like a living organism, a symphony of droplets, leaves, and wind. Through these green shadows flow the mountain rivers, crystalline veins connecting the heights to the sea. The Sella, Deva, and Cares wind through deep gorges and sunlit meadows. Their channels tell stories of glacial melt and erosion, carving canyons where the sound of water becomes an eternal echo. Sometimes they rush as furious torrents, other times they lie still, mirrors reflecting the northern sky. The changing seasons transform these forests into ever-evolving scenes. In spring, green bursts forth with almost electric energy. In summer, the dense foliage creates cool, shaded refuges. Autumn arrives with a symphony of ochres, golds, and reds, igniting the landscape like a slow-burning fire. Finally, winter strips the trees bare, and silence blankets everything. Walking through these forests is like stepping back in time. Here, the world seems to remember itself, and one understands that eternity can dwell in the simple crunch of leaves beneath your feet. Northern Spain is a land shaped by geography and the sea. The Cantabrian mountains rise like a wall against the Atlantic, stopping the humid winds that arrive from the ocean. This natural barrier forces the clouds to release their rain, creating a climate that seems detached from the rest of the country. Here, water is never scarce. It falls gently, steadily, enveloping the landscapes in a mist that keeps them eternally green. Within this balance between mountain and sea, unique microclimates emerge. In narrow valleys, humidity accumulates and temperatures barely vary, creating refuges where species thrive that cannot be found anywhere else. A beech forest may appear just a few kilometers from a beach, and a damp pasture can coexist with an arid cliff. Biological diversity is a direct result of this invisible variability. Each valley, each slope, seems to have its own climatic rhythm. The constant precipitation shapes not only the landscape, but also the life that inhabits it. Forests grow dense, rivers flow year-round, and the ground is covered in a perpetual mantle of vegetation. Everything moves slowly, under a soft, filtered light that rarely scorches. Yet, crossing the mountains southward brings an immediate change. Humidity vanishes, the green fades, and inland Spain emerges with its golden dryness. It is the country's most striking contrast, a climatic leap that reveals the singularity of the north, where rain and mist are more than weather. They are identity. The high Castilian Plateau is the silent soul of Spain. an immense land where the horizon seems endless and the landscape is measured more by its emptiness than by its presence. Here, earth and sky meet without obstacles. Infinite plains stretch like a motionless sea, where the horizon line is both a promise and a boundary at the same time. Cereal fields dominate the landscape, transforming it with each season. In spring, the plateau becomes a green ocean swaying in the wind. In summer, it turns golden and crisp under the sun. In autumn, long shadows paint the ground with ochre and reddish tones. And in winter, frost turns the fields into pale mirrors. This chromatic mosaic is a choreography of seasons repeated for centuries, guided by the ancestral rhythm of agriculture. But what truly defines the plateau is its sky. In every direction, it occupies more than 70% of the landscape, an immense dome of shifting clouds, storms announced from kilometers away, and sunsets that ignite the plains with impossible light. Here, the atmosphere is the protagonist, not the background. Architecture barely interrupts this vastness. A solitary hermitage on a hill, an abandoned village resisting time, a Mudajar tower outlined against the immensity. Everything seems placed with an almost religious respect for space. On the high plateau, silence becomes tangible, and one understands that beauty can also arise from austerity. Rising from the infinite plains of the plateau, like a stone backbone, are the central mountain ranges. The Sistema Central, with names resonating with history and legend. Guadarrama, Gredos, Sierra de Francia, divides the heart of Spain and shapes its climate, light, and silence. These mountains, formed of ancient granites and quartzites, have been sculpted over millennia by ice, wind, and time. At the heights, where the air turns transparent and sound dissolves, glacial cirques recall the mark of a frozen past. Within them lie high mountain lakes, cold and still, like mirrors preserving the memory of vanished glaciers. The Laguna Grande de Gredos, or the Laguna de los Pájaros in Guadarrama, stand as witnesses to a seemingly eternal geology, where stone bears the scars of ice and water reflects them. Vegetation here adapts to altitude and harsh conditions. Scots pines, with orange trunks and cracked bark, withstand the winters with ancient dignity. Higher up, Spanish broom, piornos, carpets the slopes with yellow blossoms in spring, tinting the mountains with a golden glow that announces life even in the harshest places. When winter arrives, the landscape transforms completely. Snow covers peaks and valleys, muffles sound, silences color, and turns the mountains into a stage of absolute stillness. Only the crack of ice or the flight of a vulture breaks the silence. Then, the central ranges reveal their true nature, a refuge of purity and resilience, where time is measured in seasons, and the mountains, with their immense calm, teach what it means to endure. The Dehesa is one of the most singular and characteristic landscapes of the Iberian Peninsula. At first glance, it appears as an open, serene land, dotted with scattered holm oaks casting round shadows over the dry grass. But behind this apparent simplicity lies a unique ecosystem, the result of centuries of coexistence between humans and nature. Here, the hand of man does not destroy. It shapes with respect. Every oak has been cared for, every meadow used without breaking the balance. Beneath the canopies of these centuries-old trees, extensive livestock moves freely, attuned to the rhythm of the land. Brave bulls rest in the shade, while Iberian pigs forage for acorns, transforming that fruit into the unmistakable flavor of Spain's most iconic ham. This slow, circular way of life has survived centuries thanks to a deep understanding of the environment, to use without exhausting, to coexist without dominating. The silence of the Dehesa is broken only by the song of cicadas or the distant jingle of a cowbell. And when the day fades, its most beautiful moment arrives. The golden light of the Extremaduran sunset envelops the landscape in an almost sacred glow. Trunks turn amber, holm oak leaves gleam like old metal, and the air smells of warm earth and history. In that instant, the Dehesa seems eternal. It is the calm heart of Spain, where rural life preserves its oldest wisdom, a space where nature and man recognize themselves as part of the same cycle, and where each sunset reminds us that balance, fragile, silent, precious, is still possible. The Central Plateau lives at the extremes. In summer, the sun falls with relentless intensity, making the air vibrate over the parched fields. Heat seems to freeze everything. Paths crack, dust rises at the slightest breeze, and the horizon dissolves into a golden mirage. But when winter arrives, the contrast is absolute. Cold takes your breath away, ice covers puddles, and villages seem to fold in on themselves, wrapped in a silence of stone and smoke. On the plateau, there are no middle grounds. Each season imposes its law. Drought, far from being absence, is a form of beauty. The bare landscape reveals its essential structure: gentle hills, plowed lines, paths disappearing among ochre and gray tones. There is something profoundly austere about this cracked land, an order that only emptiness can provide. Lack of water is not just scarcity, it is clarity. The land shows itself unadorned, with a truth that borders on the spiritual. And when balance is broken, the sky becomes a spectacle. Thunderstorms erupt over the plains with primitive force. Lightning illuminates miles of distance. Thunder shakes the ground. Curtains of rain appear and vanish as if the world itself were breathing. In this landscape of contrasts, emptiness acquires aesthetic value. There is no distraction or excess, only space, horizon, and silence. The plateau teaches that beauty is not always in abundance, but in the presence of emptiness, in the emotion provoked by an uninhabited vastness. Here, nature does not seek to seduce, it simply exists, imposing and serene, like a truth that needs no explanation. Up to this point, we have journeyed through ancient mountains, forests that seem frozen in time, and plains that teach us the beauty of emptiness. Each landscape invites us to breathe, pause, and contemplate. If this journey resonates with you, we invite you to subscribe and join us on more contemplative adventures. Every video on our channel is a window into places where time stands still, where nature and history intertwine in calm and harmony. Allow yourself a moment to connect with these spaces. Let the light, wind, and silence move through you, and discover eternal Spain from a slow, profound perspective. The Levantine Coast is a mosaic of contrasts and colors that seem to emerge from a carefully painted canvas. Its limestone cliffs drop abruptly into the sea, forming white walls that reflect the sunlight and seem to hold up the sky. Between these rocky barriers lie hidden coves where the water takes on impossible turquoise hues, inviting silence and contemplation. Every corner feels protected, a refuge where the murmur of the waves mingles with the scent of salt and pine. The Mediterranean pines, twisted by the constant wind, lean toward the sea, tracing silhouettes that resemble living sculptures. Their orange trunks and green crowns contrast with the pale rock and the deep blue ocean, creating a dialogue between land and sky. The resilient vegetation, adapted to sun and scarce water, gives the coastline a wild character, capable of withstanding centuries of erosion and tides. The sea here is never uniform. It changes its shades of blue at every moment. From the deep cobalt of the open waters to the bright aquamarine of shallow coves, the color seems to breathe with the light of day and the reflections of clouds. This chromatic play is accompanied by rock formations shaped over millennia by wind and waves. Arches, caves, and stacks tell stories of patient erosion, of a sea that sculpts the land with infinite patience. Exploring the Levantine Coast is to understand how geology, vegetation, and the sea combine in harmony. Each cliff, each cove, each wind-shaped pine testifies to the force of Mediterranean nature, wild, luminous, and timeless, a place where observing light, color, and movement becomes almost a ritual. At Spain's southeastern tip, Cabo de Gata unfolds like a landscape from another planet. Its volcanic origin has created impossible forms, cones defying gravity, cliffs cut at sharp angles, and fluvial beaches blending with rocks colored from intense red to deep black. Every stone, ridge, and clay patch tells the story of fire that once shaped this land, crafting a scene that combines beauty and strangeness with millenary precision. Here, the desert does not stop inland. It reaches the sea, making Cabo de Gata the only arid region in Europe washed by Mediterranean waters. The contrast is striking. Dunes, salt flats, and arid ravines coexist with golden sand coves and turquoise waters that seem suspended in time. The intense sunlight reflects the harshness of the land and the sparkle of the sea, creating a landscape where every shadow and color tells a story of resilience and adaptation. Flora has found its place in this extreme environment. Palmitos with rigid green leaves, agaves resembling living sculptures, and prickly pears scattered across the slopes show how life can thrive in adverse conditions. Each plant is an example of adaptation and survival, a reminder of nature's tenacity. Amid this aridity and rock emerge protected, virgin beaches that seem hidden from the world. Playa de Monsul, with its golden sand and volcanic rocks, and Los Genoveses, broad and silent, offer refuges where the desert's force meets the Mediterranean's calm. Walking through these spaces is to experience a unique balance between desolation and beauty, between otherworldly shapes and crystal-clear waters, and to understand that Cabo de Gata is a corner where nature has written its law without compromise, creating an unparalleled landscape in Europe. The Mediterranean light possesses a unique character, capable of transforming any landscape into a living painting. Painters like Sorolla and Zobel sought it for centuries, captivated by its special quality, a warm clarity that reveals intense colors and nuances impossible to capture elsewhere. It is not just brightness, but how the sun interacts with the sky, land, and sea, creating atmospheres that seem suspended in time. Along the coast, sunrises paint the horizon with soft pink hues, where sky and water appear to merge. Each wave delicately reflects the light, and the crisp morning air intensifies the scent of pine and sea salt. In the afternoons, sunsets set the horizon ablaze with a golden glow that filters through cliffs and coves, bathing every rock and plant in a nearly sacred shine. These moments invite absolute contemplation, where nature and light meet in perfect harmony. The transparency of the water is another gift of the Mediterranean. In many coves and bays, underwater visibility allows one to see to the bottom. Colorful fish, posidonia, and rock formations reveal themselves beneath the surface, as if the sea were liquid crystal. Every visual dive is a discovery, an intimate encounter with marine life and underwater geography. This light also shapes the traditional whitewashed architecture of the Mediterranean coast. Houses and villages, with their sun-reflecting walls, amplify the light, creating an effect of serenity and freshness. Here, light does more than illuminate. It sculpts the landscape, shapes perception, and accompanies daily life, turning every corner of the Mediterranean into a constantly evolving work of art. The Mediterranean's coastal marine ecosystems are a living world, where every element plays a vital role in the health of the shoreline. Posidonia meadows spread beneath the surface like green carpets, functioning as the true lungs of the Mediterranean, producing oxygen, trapping sediments, and providing shelter for countless marine species. Their density and reach protect the coast from erosion while maintaining biodiversity and balance. Amid these meadows, the seabed becomes a rocky underwater landscape. Steep formations, caves, and small reefs create natural hideouts for fish, crustaceans, and mollusks. Light filtering from above paints these corners with blue and green reflections, revealing textures and volumes that resemble living sculptures. Every rock and crevice is both a home and a refuge, bearing witness to the water's constant passage. Above the sea, the sky hosts seabirds that complete the ecosystem. Gulls glide over the waves, cormorants dive with precision, and shearwaters circle in the coastal breeze. Each flight and dive reminds us of the intimate connection between air, water, and land. The sea itself acts as a patient and constant sculptor. Erosion shapes cliffs, cove by cove, leaving invisible yet eternal marks on the rock. The movement of waves, the friction of sand, and the force of wind work unhurriedly, slowly transforming the coast and reminding us that in these ecosystems, nature does not merely exist. It shapes, protects, and renews with infinite patience. The Balearic Archipelago is a microcosm of the Mediterranean, where each island offers a distinct version of light, sea, and land. In Menorca, nature reveals itself in its purest form. Its untouched coves, protected from urbanization, open between cliffs of white limestone, creating landscapes where the blue of the sea contrasts with the clarity of the rock and the low Mediterranean shrub vegetation. Each cove is a refuge of tranquility, where the gentle sound of waves blends with birdsong and the scent of wild thyme and rosemary. In Majorca, the Serra de Tramuntana rises as the island's backbone. Declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it stands out for its harmonious integration with the landscape, where villages, stone paths, and terraced fields coexist with the rugged geography. Olive groves, almond trees, and pine forests climb steep slopes, while natural viewpoints offer seemingly endless views of the sea. The Tramuntana wind is more than a breeze. It symbolizes resilience and the millennia-old relationship between humans and the mountains. Ibiza, beyond its famous beaches and nightlife, hides forests of centuries-old junipers growing on rocky limestone soils. These trees, twisted by wind and time, create silent, history-filled corners where the island reveals its wild and mysterious side. Formentera, in contrast, embodies natural minimalism. White sandy beaches, sandbanks emerging like mirrors in the Mediterranean, and gentle dunes that seem to slide toward the horizon. The island conveys a sense of absolute peace, a direct connection with the essence of the sea and light. The isolation of these islands has allowed unique ecosystems to survive, where endemic species and original habitats remain almost untouched. The combination of sea, rock, and Mediterranean vegetation creates a delicate balance, reminding us that conservation and distance from urbanization are key to preserving the natural and cultural wealth of this small paradise. In the Balearics, each island is its own universe, concentrated and full of secrets awaiting discovery at a slow, contemplative pace. The Canary Archipelago is a world of its own, a corner of Europe seemingly transported to the tropics. Its recent volcanic origin has produced landscapes that defy imagination. In Lanzarote, the land feels otherworldly, with hardened lava flows, volcanic cones, and ash fields stretching as far as the eye can see, forming an almost lunar scene. Every rock and crevice tells the story of a territory in constant transformation, where the fire's force still seems to pulse beneath the surface. In Tenerife, Teide towers as a giant dominating the island. Its height and mass create a microclimate, modulating temperature and humidity on its slopes and affecting vegetation and winds. At its base, the landscape changes dramatically, from black volcanic sand beaches to sunlit golden shores, showing that the archipelago concentrates contrasts that could span entire continents. In La Gomera, natural history pauses in the Laurisilva, a prehistoric forest surviving since the Tertiary era. Tree ferns, laurels, and mosses form a lush, humid green mantle, only broken by ancient trails where the air is soaked with freshness and moisture. It is a time-frozen ecosystem, a refuge for unique species that have endured climatic changes for millions of years. The Canary geography is vertical and dramatic. Deep calderas and ravines cross the islands like scars from a turbulent volcanic past, offering impossible views and trails where nature manifests in its most extreme form. Endemic species survive here as symbols of resilience and uniqueness. The millennial dragon tree with its twisted trunk and red sap, and Taginastaes, tall scarlet flowers emerging from arid soils like flames on rock. The most astonishing feature of the Canaries is the contrast of climates within just a few kilometers. One can pass from a sun-drenched desert to a humid cloud forest in just half an hour, traveling from the coast to the island's interior. This diversity creates ever-changing landscapes and varied ecosystems, all alive, all unique. The Canaries are, ultimately, Europe in the tropics, a natural laboratory where fire, water, light, and life intertwine to produce a continuous, unique, and captivating spectacle, experienced only by walking, observing, and breathing in every corner. Insularity is much more than the geographical condition of being surrounded by water. It is a way of inhabiting the world, a constant encounter with limits and possibilities. On an island, the sea defines the horizon, drawing a circle that encloses and protects, but also invites one to look beyond. Each wave breaking on the shore reminds us of our connection to the vast and unknown, and each sunset over the ocean transforms the boundary into a portal for contemplation. This isolation has allowed islands to develop fragile and unique ecosystems, where every species, geological formation, and coastal meadow holds irreplaceable value. Biodiversity is concentrated, specialized, and adapted to conditions that are found nowhere else on the planet. The fragility of these spaces reminds us of our responsibility to preserve them, to approach them with respect and admiration. Beyond ecology, the island becomes a metaphor for contemplation. Its relative solitude, the proximity of the horizon, and the repetition of natural cycles invite introspection. Walking along a deserted beach, listening to the wind through the pines, or hearing the murmur of water on the cliffs is to understand that beauty also resides in stillness, in a calm gaze, and in the sense of being. For a moment, in a world complete and confined to the time and space we choose to inhabit. Throughout this journey, we have seen how, within a single territory, Spain condenses entire worlds, mountains that touch the sky, forests where time seems to stand still, coasts bathed by two oceans, islands guarding millennial secrets. It is a microcosm of Europe, where climates, cultures, and landscapes coexist so varied that each corner feels like a miniature continent. These landscapes are not static. They live, breathe, and change with each season. Intense greens turn to ochres, Mediterranean light shifts to gold and pink, and the ocean changes its hue with the tides and winds. Each journey reveals only a fraction of this infinite richness, reminding us that there are always countless more corners to discover. As we walk, observe, listen, and breathe, the question arises: where will our next steps take us? Each mountain, cove, and forest is a call to explore, to open our senses, and to immerse ourselves in the unknown. If you wish to continue this journey, other videos on the channel await. Windows into places where time stands still, landscapes that teach us to see and contemplate.